be x plus 2 and x minus 2?
If I write that, don't, then remember this is basically the difference of squares, right? So it's x squared minus 2x plus 2x, and they go away, and 2 times negative 2 will be negative 4, right?
Right.
So the left-hand side cannot equal the right-hand side. So the factored form is not x plus 2 times x minus 2. First, remember we have to go through these steps. This is very important not to skip. So I have to identify it. It's a binomial, descending order, yes. Greatest common factor, no. Negative leading coefficient, no. And now I'm here. And of course, it's this one, not this one, because it's not the sum of cubes, it's the sum of squares. But what do I know about the sum of squares?
Would it be like x plus 2 squared?
The x plus 2 squared, remember from chapter 5, is a trinomial. The first term squared plus 2 times the first times the second plus the second term squared. So this is a trinomial, it has nothing to do with a binomial.
Okay.
So what do we know about the sum of squares?
I mean, you wrote not, so it must not be factorable?
Yes.
I forgot that.
So maybe you want to put all this information in here so you have it condensed. So the sum of squares is not factorable. The difference of squares is, the difference of cubes is, the sum of cubes is, but the sum of squares is not. Okay. We're working on this. You asked me to extend it, but I already extended till May the 3rd or May the 4th already.
Oh, okay.
We already talked about it. You haven't checked this week.
I have. I saw May all of the
Yeah, but May is,
all the way. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I saw that. I was
still May the 4th,
Okay.
till next Friday. Okay, so now 4x squared minus 13x and plus 10.
The reason why I was confused is because I saw all of them May 4th, May 4th, May 4th.
I allowed everyone to go back and redo and increase their grade, and if they fell behind, and
Okay.
I did that last week.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we do with 4x squared minus 13x plus 10? Are we going to be ready for this test?
I think so.
Okay, can I
Like,
sleep?
We can multiply a times c.
Yes, I will have to multiply. Also remember, quickly, we have to go through the strategy. It's a trinomial, it's in descending order, yes. Greatest common factor, 4, negative 13, 10, no. Negative leading coefficient, no. And now we are here. Is it a special product? No. 10 is not a perfect square. So these two don't work. This doesn't work because the leading coefficient is not 1. So you're right. I'm down to the very last option. Okay, perfect. So then I'm trying to find two numbers whose product is 40 and whose sum is? Very good, negative 13, indeed. So let's think. Come up with two numbers whose product is 40 and whose sum is negative 13.
8, 5, 8.
Yes, but remember I have to, the signs are crucial. I look at the product first. Okay, the product is positive, so both have to be positive or both have to be negative. Since the sum is negative, I know for sure that they must be
Negative.
correct. So then I will write the negative 5 and a negative 8. Awesome. The product is this, the sum is this, done. Now what do I do next from here? Because remember this method, the very last one, is not straightforward. I cannot use negative 5 and 8 and say this is it, I'm done. What do I have to do next?
You write like 4x squared minus 8x minus
Okay,
5x
yes,
plus 10.
yes,
And
indeed.
factor that.
Yes, by, it's called by Factoring by?
Is it grouping?
Exactly. Good. What do I factor out from the first two?
4x,
Very good. What is left in parentheses?
x minus 2,
What do I have to have coming out of the other two?
x minus 2,
If it's not there, I know I have a mistake because I found the numbers. Once I find two numbers who fit the criteria, both situations, x minus 2 has to be a common factor now. I need sign and factor.
-5,
Indeed, -5. We're working on the first page and last page of the previous test. Very good, -5 indeed. And now I have to pull out the common factor, which is
x minus 2,
very good. And for x minus 5. Very good. Perfect. Okay, we're moving on. 18x squared minus 12x plus 2. Let's work on this problem for 1 minute. I want to see something, please. Can anyone tell us what to do first?
do the greatest common factor first.
Yes. Yes, which is, so it's in descending order, it's a trinomial.
Right,
No negative leading coefficient, but there is a common factor. Awesome.
it would be 2,
Yes. 2, and in parentheses.
9x squared.
Very good.
Minus 6x. plus
Yes.
1.
Very good. Awesome. Now, I'm here. I have to go through these steps. I have to check first if it's a special product. I always hope for a special product. If it's not, I hope for a 1 as the leading coefficient. And then I have no choice. Okay, so is it a special product? Is this a perfect square?
Yes,
Which is what?
3x.
Perfect. Is this a perfect square?
No. Or yes.
Yes. 1 is a very friendly number. Perfect square, perfect cube, perfect anything you want. So I do hope for what?
3x plus 1.
Sorry.
3x minus 1.
Very good. That's my hope. And what? Squared, right?
Yeah.
Squared. So this squared should be 3 terms. What is the middle term here? 2 times 3x times what? What is the middle term here?
6x.
Yes, very good. If I don't have 6x here, I cannot accept this. Do I have negative 6x?
Yes.
So I have to accept it. And this is the correct factor form. Remember? When I identify whether it's a special product or not, I only look at the first and the last. But then I have to check the middle term. Because if the middle term is not negative 6x, but it's negative 5x, then this is incorrect. Is it clear? Yes? Okay, next one. Any questions here? M squared plus 5m plus mt plus 5t. Any questions on this problem? So when you identify the special product for a trinomial, you must look at the first term and see if it's a perfect square. You must look at the last term and see if it's a perfect square and make sure that it's positive, right? Okay? Because there is no special product in a trinomial with negative here, ever. Okay? So once I see that this is a perfect square, this is a perfect square and positive, I don't look here other than the minus, and I say, oh, I think it's 3x minus 1 squared. But now I have to check in here the middle term. 2 times the first times the second. And it turns out to be negative 6x. So I'm safe. And that's the correct factor form. Is this okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you know, like, there's different questions that comes with different solutions. And I wanted to find out, like, this one has common factors. So whenever you see a common factors with squared, is that when you do this?
But the factor does not depend on the power or the degree of the polynomial. The greatest common factor is a quantity that is present in all three terms in this case that I have to pull out. It can have x or not, it can be a number or just a combination, it doesn't matter. That's the starting point right here, greatest common factor. After the descending order, I have to look at this. If I don't pull out what is common to all three, I may never be able to factor it. So that will always help me factor. If I don't factor the 2, look what I have to do then. That will be an error from the beginning. But let's say I don't factor the 2, then I have to multiply 18 by 2, and that's 36. And then I need a sum of negative 12 and a product of 36, which is way longer and more time consuming. So that's why whatever you are given to factor, skipping any of these steps is a mistake, a potential mistake. I'm not really saying that you're not going to be able to factor at the end if you just use the long procedure here. But why? Since this is very straightforward. But it's not straightforward if you don't factor the greatest common factor. So always in math, you should always think in terms of factor, simplify, and clean it up. I say this to all my students in all my classes. So whenever you are given something, the first thing in your mind is, okay, can I simplify it? Can I factor something to even simplify it further? Can I clean it up somehow? That should always be in the back of your mind. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Other questions on this problem? Okay, so now we're looking at this. How do I start? What do I have to do? What is the first thing that goes to my mind? So one more time, the test is available for you starting from Monday. It's available even from today. I gave it to them. Okay? So between now and Friday, and last meeting for us is next Saturday. And the final exam, if you want to take it in class with me, I'll give you some options. If you want to take it Monday or Tuesday in a testing center, I already gave it to them, but I can also take it back.
I have a question. The review for the final exam is also due May 4th, correct? The review of the 75 questions.
I think May the 5th is a Saturday.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So yeah, the last meeting for us is next Saturday. And the final exam is the following Monday, Tuesday. Now, I will be here on Wednesday. So if you're interested in Wednesday, May the 9th, I will be here in this room from 4 p.m., I think. 4 p.m. But you have to let me know because I'm not going to bring a test if I don't know you're coming. And the test is in the testing center already. The final exam is there Monday and Tuesday. Okay? Good. So what do I do here? And the final exam is on paper, so not on the computer. So don't forget to show your work anyway, even for test 4. Okay, so what is the idea here? What do I?
Factor by grouping.
Very good. There is no other way because it's a 4-term polynomial. And there is no greatest common factor. They have m and t. I'm not going to worry about that. M squared, m and t. I'm not going to mess with it at all. So indeed, factor by grouping. And what do I do?
Take out n.
Very good. What is left in parentheses?
N plus 5.
Perfect. What should I have in parentheses?
N plus 5.
Correct.
You just take out t.
Yes, but the sign. Because if I just write, I'm not saying you made a mistake. I'm just saying, I know when you say t, I should have assumed positive t. But what I'm saying is, if somebody writes this without the sign, you're not going to be able to finish it.
Right.
Right? Because you have to have 2 terms. Again, Corey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that you missed anything, but I just wanted to emphasize something. Good. Okay. 125t cubed plus 64. Okay, what do I do here? Any suggestions? Of course you have suggestions because you have to go through all these steps, right? You have to identify what it is. You have to see if it's in descending order. You have to check whether it has a greatest common factor and a negative leading coefficient. Does it? Is it in descending order?
Yeah.
Greatest common factor.
Yeah.
125 and 64 do not have anything in common. I wish.
But 5 goes into 125 3 times, correct?
Right.
And 8 goes into 64 goes. 8 goes into 64 2 times.
Right, but I cannot consider something with cubed and something with squared. It's not going to work. I don't have any formula like that with a cubed and a squared. And also, I cannot factor out something from here and something from here. When we talk about the greatest common factor, it has to be something that we pull out from all of them. The same thing, the same quantity. I can't say, I'm not saying you said that, but I can say, okay, from here I'm going to pull out a 5, and from here I'm going to pull out an 8. It doesn't work that way. So, descending order, yes. Greatest common factor? In both. No. No. Negative leading coefficient? No. Very good. So now, I'm down to these 4 special products. Since it's a plus, a positive, of course I'm not going to think of these 2. I will think of this and this. So which one is it? If it's applicable. It doesn't have to be applicable.
The third one?
Yes. What do you mean by the third one? 1, 2, 3?
No, the 4th one.
The 4th one. That's okay. Perfect. Good. So we identified it that it's a sum of what?
Cubes.
Awesome. Once you say the sum of cubes, then you will have to write this because you are expecting a binomial and you are expecting a trinomial. You need more paper?
Yeah, it's just I always have trouble with these cube ones, so
I can give you more paper.
yeah, thank you.
I lied.
Doesn't care. I actually have some paper with me.
You sure?
Yeah, it's cool.
Okay. So what is the binomial?
Would it be 5t plus 5 plus 4? Oh,
4 times 4 times 4, right? 5 times 5 times 5. So when you cube this, you will get that. When you cube this, you will get this.
Okay, yeah.
So now the trinomial. How do I write the trinomial?
Is it 5t?
Is it 25t squared
Very good. 25t squared.
minus 20t
Yes, the product. 20t. Very good. Plus,
plus 16?
that's it. First term squared minus the product now, not with the 2. That's the 2 is in the trinomial. Plus the second term squared. Is this clear? Okay. Solve the following equations. Any questions here, please? Can you see? Okay. So x plus 1 times x minus 2 equals 4. How do I solve this? What is the first thought? Where is the starting point?
Don't you have to equal to 0?
Awesome. Because I have to use the zero product principle. Very good. So I have x plus 1, x minus 2 minus 4 equals 0. Perfect. Then
Would you distribute negative 4?
careful. I will distribute negative 4 if negative 4 is multiplying this. But is negative 4 in front here?
No. Okay.
No. So these are two quantities. Blah, 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 minus 4. So what do I do then?
Multiply the two quantities.
I have to FOIL, yes. So x times x is x squared minus 2x plus x minus 2 minus 4 equals 0. I have no choice. I have to distribute everything, and I have to combine like terms, and I get x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. So all this happened only because the zero product principle requires 0 on one side. I have no choice. So I can't say, oh, maybe x plus 1 is 5, and maybe this is 4 over 5. No, I can't do that. So, yes.
That's a good answer.
Okay. I hope you're going to be ready for next week. Okay. Good. So we had to move forward to the other side because we had 0. Now we no longer have a product here. Product, 0, product, principal. So I have 0 now, but I destroy the left-hand side. So what? I have to work on it. I have to have the 0 here. I have no choice. So then I had to FOIL, and then I combined like terms, and I got this. I'm hoping that this is quickly factorable. So I go through my strategy quickly in my head. Descending trinomial, yes. Descending order, yes. Greatest common factor, no. Negative leading coefficient, no. Here it is, trinomials. Special product, no, because this is negative 6. So which of these two? Well, the first one, because the leading coefficient is 1. So it's nice. It's not that hard because I don't have to go through all the process of replacing this, replacing that, and factoring by grouping and so on and so forth. So what is the factored form of x squared minus x minus 6?
Is it x plus 2x minus 3?
Very good. The product is negative 6 and the sum is negative 1. So then there are two options. I know there should be two options because the degree of this is? The degree of this is 2, so I have to have 2 solutions. If the degree is 5, I have to have 5 solutions, even if some of them may repeat themselves. Good. So x equals? And x equals?
Minus 2 plus 3.
Very good. Any questions? Any questions? 2 2x squared plus 5x equals 12. So let's look at this one.
Is it 2x squared plus 5x minus 12 equals 0?
Of course, thank you very much. Awesome. Good. So now I have to go to the strategy. Do not skip steps, please. What is it? What type of polynomial? Trinomial. Is it in descending order?
It is.
Greatest common factor.
No.
Negative leading coefficient.
No.
Special product.
Yeah.
It cannot be a special product if the last term is negative ever.
No.
So let's look again. See the two special products for trinomials? They have plus and plus. So this is not a special product. And first of all, this is not a perfect square, and this is not a perfect square. So not a special product. Is it 1 as the leading coefficient?
No.
No. So I'm at the very last possibility. What does the last possibility say?
Sum of negative, 5, sum of 5
Very good. Awesome.
and negative 12. I don't even know how to say it. Numbers that sum up to negative 12?
The product.
The product.
If the leading coefficient is 1, then I will say yes for negative 12. But because the leading coefficient is not 1, I cannot say yes to negative 12. Negative 24. Is that clear?
Because you multiply 2 by 12.
I have to. Yes, that's the last option. Good. So let's continue. I always start with the product. My first thought is to look at the product. The product is negative. When the product of two numbers is negative, one of them must be
Negative.
and the other must be
Positive.
correct. So first establish the signs. And now you can see that since the sum is positive, this number has to be bigger in absolute value, so that this minus this is a positive number. So can we come up with two numbers whose product is negative 24 and whose sum is positive 5? Very good, indeed. 8 and negative 3. And remember, this is the most difficult situation. I cannot use these numbers and say, that's it, I'm done. No, I have to go through several other steps. Can anyone dictate the next step? Yes, but exactly. What do I write?
When we're like 2x squared plus 8x minus 3x minus 12 equals 0.
Yes. If I forget the equal symbol and 0, I will never solve. I will change it into an expression and I will never get x. So be very careful not to forget the equal symbol and 0. Okay, the left-hand side. What do I factor out?
That would be 2. No, wait. Sorry, x. Right? 2x. Yes, for sure. 2x.
It has to be the greatest common factor, not one portion. See, if I only factor out the x and not the 2, I'll be in trouble here.
Okay.
So it has to be the greatest common factor, everything possible.
Does it help when you cover that up? Does it really help?
I think so. Because you will not look, you will write the parentheses first, and then if you don't cover it, you may factor out something else, and you may not get the same thing, and it may mess you up. I don't really cover it when I factor, but I don't look before I write the second set of parentheses. I'm not going around with this thing in my pocket, right, to cover it. You know what I mean. But I'm covering it because I want you to understand that it's safe to write the second set of parentheses, the equal symbol and 0, before you find the factor in front of the second set of parentheses. So, what do I have here?
It would be X,
Yes?
plus.
Very good.
Yes.
So I have to have this here, which is, see, that's exactly what I'm saying. Because if you write the x minus 4 here, it's done. It's ruined. You cannot solve. So x plus 4 here and x minus 4 here, you can factor. That's why I write it before I look. It has to be the same quantity. If it's not the same quantity, you cannot continue. I need sign and factor. Correct. So what is the common factor now that I have to pull out? If I forget to write the equal symbol and 0, I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying if I forget, I will not solve. So then there are two options. X could be,
Minus 4 plus 3.
careful, it's a 2x minus 3. So I have to move 3 to the other side. It becomes positive and divide by 2. Very good. Okay, next one. 9x squared equals 1. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Okay, what do I do?
9x squared minus 1
9x squared minus 1, and then?
equals 0.
Perfect. Now I look on the left-hand side and I say, I know what this is, and the answer is, what is it?
It is.
So first of all, it's a binomial. Step number 2, is it in descending order?
Yes.
Step number 3, greatest common factor.
No.
No. Step number 4, special product.
Yes.
Yes, because it's the difference of squares, not the sum of squares. The sum of squares will be not factorable, but this is a difference of squares. How do I factor the difference of squares?
Would be 3x plus 1 and 3x minus 1.
Yes. Equal symbol and 0. And then we have two solutions. And those solutions are?
Negative 1/3, positive 1/3.
Exactly. Is this clear? Yes? Everyone? Okay, let's go to the back of this test. Let's start with the middle one, number 8. Negative 6x plus 4x cubed equals 2x squared. This is another equation. We're asked to solve it. So let's think about it. And then when we finish this and the other two on this page, we're going to go back to the book for other problems. Can anyone give us the first step?
Put it in descending order. Of course.
And set it equal to?
0.
We are here doing this. Yes, very good. So can anyone dictate that step?
X cubed
Very good.
minus 2x
X squared,
I'm sorry.
that's fine.
Plus 6.
I cannot,
Minus 6.
yes. So always remember, we take this numbers with a sign in front. And then equals?
0.
Perfect. Now let's establish from the very beginning, how many solutions will you write? Mandatory.
3.
Exactly, because the degree of this polynomial is 3. Good. Now, can I simplify it? This is always in the back of my mind. And you can never say that to divide by x. But you could say, yeah, you can divide both sides by?
2x.
Never by x. Only by 2. I would not, if I divide by x, I change the equation from 3 solutions to 2 solutions, and I cannot do that. So let's divide both sides by 2. What do we get?
2x cubed
Yes?
minus x cubed
Squared
squared and minus 3x.
equals 0 over 2, which is?
0.
Yes. In an expression, I cannot get rid of 2. I have to have 2 in front as the greatest common factor. But in an equation, I'm okay to divide both sides by 2. I'm not changing solutions if I divide by 2, but I'm not okay to divide by x. That's never an option. Good. So now, what do I have to do? It's in descending order, greatest common factor. Is there a greatest common factor here? All 3 terms have a common factor, which is?
X.
Perfect. I could not divide by x. I'm not allowed to divide by x. So I can factor out, and I have to. Otherwise, I can't continue. What is left in parentheses?
2x squared
Perfect?
minus x
Yes, perfect?
minus 2.
Awesome. So now I'm looking inside, and I see a trinomial, descending order, no greatest common factor. I took care of that. No negative leading coefficient. Special product? No. There's no special product because this is not a perfect square, and this is negative, and not a perfect square. Is 1 the leading coefficient? That's the next on the strategy. Is 1 the leading coefficient?
Yes.
No. The leading coefficient is 2. So then I'm at the very bottom option
Why is it 2?
because I see 2 here. 2. I don't see 1.
So the x doesn't matter? Like,
This is a factor outside. I'm talking about the inside. We're talking about the trinomial. We're not talking about the common factor that we pulled up. It's a very good question. We're not talking about this. We're talking about this. Good. So then I'm looking for 2 numbers whose product is? Very good. And the sum is -1. Always start by looking at the product. The product has a very important piece of information. If the product is negative, then I know for sure what? One is positive and 1 is negative. In such a way that this one has to be bigger because the result is negative. So, what do I write? -3 and +2. I know you did. So, I have the x in front. And please tell me what we have in brackets. I have to start with 2x squared. I cannot disregard that term, and everything has to be in descending order anyway. Then,
x
Plus 2x. Minus 3x. Minus 3.
very good.
wait, I don't
That's how we found these numbers. That's why we found these numbers, to replace this using them. That was the purpose of finding these two.
is to replace
To replace this. Yes. Good. So then, what now?
Factor out 2x.
Good. What is left in parentheses?
X squared.
No. Because if I put x times x squared will be x
Oh,
cubed.
it's just the x then.
Good.
And then,
I start with 2 terms, I have to have 2 terms in parentheses.
plus 1.
Correct. If I omit this, I cannot recover that, right? I will only get 2x times x, but I will not get this term back. So now what do I have to have in parentheses?
So x plus 1.
Correct.
Done.
Now I look.
Now that
Very good. X is the first factor. What comes out now? The common factor, the order is not important, but I think it's better if you put the common factor first, but it's not important, really. Don't forget the equal symbol and 0. How many solutions will you give for this problem?
3.
Very good. What are they?
1 would be 0.
Correct. That's from the first factor.
Next one would be -1.
And the last one?
And then 3 over 2.
Very good. Do we all agree with this?
Yeah.
Questions? Questions? Okay, so let's look at word problems now. A triangular sign is as wide as it is tall, which means something like this. So assuming that this is the same with this. So it's a triangle. So this is x, and so is this. Or whatever letter you want to use. Its area is 800 centimeters squared. Find the height and the base. Well, height and base are the same. So, any suggestions?
Area is length times width, correct?
Divided by 2 for the triangle. For the rectangle is length times width. But if it's a triangle, you have to divide it by 2. So, in this case, it's the base times height divided by 2. So base times height divided by 2 must equal 800. So the area of a triangle, base times height over 2. So then, how do I proceed with this?
So the area is 800 equal to.
Would you multiply 2 times that?
Yes, of course. Always have the same idea, as I mentioned before, in back of your mind. Simplify, factor, and clean it up. So how much is x times x?
X squared,
Very good. Equals?
800.
I have to, if I multiply this side by 2, I have to multiply this side by 2.
1600.
Awesome. Good. So finally I see an equation. How many solutions will this have?
2.
Perfect. It's a quadratic equation. How do I solve it? What will be my first step?
X squared minus 1600
Awesome. Then?
equal to 0.
Awesome. Good. So I'm back to the left-hand side. It's a binomial, descending order. Yes. Greatest common factor. No. Negative leading coefficient. No. Special product. I always hope for the special product. What will that be?
40.
Yes, but how do I?
X plus 40.
Very good. Awesome. Difference of squares. So there are 2 possibilities here. X equals and x equals.
Positive 40, negative 40.
And this is in centimeters. So what will I conclude? Algebraically, both solutions make sense. Both solutions make sense. But we are talking about the distance.
Right, it wouldn't be negative.
It would not be negative. So it turns out that the sign has a width of 40 centimeters and a height of 40 centimeters. Okay, last problem here. The length of a rectangular garden is 4 meters greater than the width. The area is 96 square meters. Find the length and the width. So when I'm given a problem like this, what would be my first thing, my first thought? What would I present on paper for myself?